All right. Given your time, whoever's chairing this is welcome to start.
Yeah, yeah. Great, okay. So I think Marcy's going to be late. Tell me what your last name is again? Roberts, okay. Great, okay, I will call the meeting to order. Start out with roll call. Battle.
Here. Wait, sorry.
Cross. Here. De Benedetto.
Yep.
Eater.
Oh, here.
Just in time. Di. So Marcy, I think, is coming. Mastel, here. Robert. Okay. Well, our new business is to welcome our new agency board members. Welcome. We're glad to have you. Do you guys want to give a little introduction of yourself and, I don't know, tell us?
Perry was just saying he wanted to do that, so.
Okay, perfect.
No, I wasn't. I'm Perry Roberts. I have lived in Red Lodge full-time since 2019, pretty much this time of year, 2019, and owned a home here since 2010. And my previous work experience before I retired at the beginning of 2019 was I was the director of Montana Rescue Mission in Billings, Montana. And I have an MBA from the University of Montana, sorry. And also went to undergraduate school at the University of Montana. And I've had a very varied career over the last 40 plus years.
Very cool. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining our board. Mitch, do you want to?
And I'm Midge Cross. My husband and I moved here from North Central Washington about 3 years ago. We had moved to the Methow Valley in Washington, and at that time it was this big. And over the years, particularly during the COVID years, it was discovered by Seattle. And that's why we left. And Red Lodge is actually a lot bigger than where we used to live, but it has an entirely different feel. The rural community where we originally moved to in 2000 is no longer a little rural community. It is an adjunct to Seattle, even though it's 4 hours away.
Wow.
I serve on the board of Beartooth Trails, and I am starting a volunteer work for BHA, Beartooth Humane Alliance, because Scott and I were just moving into our house in October, a brand new house, and we decided that it was time for a dog. Because we're moving into a new house, and so we needed a dog. And we got our dog through Beartooth Humane, and they are a fabulous organization. So we have supported them, and now I'll be knocking on doors, asking for gift certificates for bingo for BHA.
Awesome. Great. Great. The rest of the board, do you want to just give a little introduction, like who you are, what you are involved in, and why you're involved in this organization? Jeff, I keep looking at you, so why don't you?
Start with me.
Yeah, sure.
I'm Jeff Benedetto. I'm representing the Red Lodge Planning Board. This board. I've been involved with the Red Lodge zoning and planning boards for about 16 years. I also, my career was, I was a vegetation and landscape ecologist with the U.S. Forest Service for about, and Natural Resources Conservation Service for about 40 years before I retired, and I'm now retired.
I'm Jeremy Battles. I guess I'm on this board because I thought it might be helpful to have somebody with some property tax background. I work for the Department of Revenue currently.
The state?
The state, yeah. You know, so figuring out what TIF districts and how they work and how development might impact property taxes is, something I feel like is something I can contribute. I'm also on the resort tax committee here in the city. My wife and I have lived here probably 9 years now, full-time. I worked here seasonally before that for the Forest Service. And then, yeah, I've also had a kind of a roundabout career. Started in the Air Force as a weather meteorologist, and yeah, found myself here, which is great, so.
Also a great
So cool.
photographer,
Oh, yes, and,
natural photographer.
yep, if you ever, want to come out to the observatory, for sure, come out.
I'm Joanne Eater, and I've lived in Red Lodge. I've owned my home in Red Lodge over 50 years now.
Oh, my
My
gosh.
goodness.
It's amazing, 50 years,
50 years, wow.
51 years this
Wow.
year, which is amazing. I am on the board of Red Lodge Area Community Foundation and on their Workforce Housing Committee, and I have been since we started the committee. And so, housing is my bias, I must say. And I think it's a great opportunity. I think the Urban Renewal District is a great opportunity for including affordable housing and just a wonderful commercial combination. And it'll be beautiful, right? It'll be a beautiful entrance to Red Lodge.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
Well, I'm Tara Mastel, and I have lived in Red Lodge, it'll be 7 years in June. We moved here with 3 kids in school, and now they're all gone. I'm on the board of the Red Lodge Area Community Foundation, and I'm also on the board of the hospital. And my background is in economic development. For about 10 years, I was a manager of a county nonprofit organization focused on economic development, and in that role, I developed, well, we use consultants, but I've led the project to develop 1 urban renewal district and 2 tax increment finance districts in more, not urban areas. So that's why I was intrigued to be a part of this. I do more leadership development now, so I don't do economic development as much, but it's very much still an interest of mine. All right, so there we go. Thank you again for joining us. We're really glad to have you. Okay, so let's, Jim, did you send around the minutes? I don't know that.
Yes, I send them
Okay.
like the day
Right
after.
after, okay.
And I'm gonna try to keep doing that,
Okay.
so.
That was wonderful.
Okay, great. The next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Great. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so now we have 2 items on our old business agenda, and we have fabulous guests with us, Kate Lucas and Maggie Bellinger, and they are from Kansas State University Technical Assistance Brownfields Program. So, well, now I have to look at you to look at this way. But we are waiting for our representative from Beartooth RC&D. So should we wait?
I think you're on here remote.
Oh, okay. Oh, Myrna, there she is. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay.
Oh, we can't hear you.
There, she just
Yep.
unmuted.
I'm here, I'm
Okay.
here.
I guess I propose to everybody that we move this up on the discussion first, since we have 4 guests that are here to talk about this. Is everybody okay with that?
Mhm.
Okay, great. So with that, I guess I will thank you again. Thank you so much. We're just really at a perfect point to talk about visioning. We have a full plan for our district, but going through a visioning exercise, we thought that would be a really excellent idea, and we're very thankful for Myrna to bring it to us. So I guess I'll turn it over to you to introduce the topic.
Are you
And-
turning it over to me, Tara?
Sure, and then maybe you can introduce Maggie and Kate. I don't know.
And technically, I made Myrna, Kate, and Maggie all presenters, so if there's any of you who want to share your screen, you'll have the ability to share your screen.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yes, so Nan and I have worked with Kate and Maggie a couple different times, once on a Brownfields RLF grant application. And then shortly after that, we were with them in Helena for a Brownfields conference. And they are both just a wealth of knowledge, and they can do so many things to help. Because Beartooth is the recipient of a Brownfields community-wide assessment grant, we are able to have access to their technical assistance program. And that includes, you know, the communities that we serve, like Red Lodge. I hope I'm explaining that correctly, Kate and Maggie. So I'm just going to turn it over to them because they're the ones who know a lot more than I do.
Yeah, thank you, Myrna, and hello, everybody up there in Montana. I'm Maggie Bellinger, the Senior Director for the TAB program at Kansas State University. And yeah, so we are the technical assistance to brownfields provider funded through the US EPA Brownfields program. And what that allows us to do is provide free technical assistance to communities that are redeveloping brownfield sites or projects. And the definition of brownfields is very broad. It's, you know, any vacant or underutilized property that for whatever one reason or another, more than likely there's a perception of contamination that may exist, may not, but people have just ignored those properties. And so it's, you know, the goal of the Brownfields program is just to bring life back to those properties, or get them back into that most productive use to serve a community benefit. And yeah, as Myrna said, we've worked with her and her organization. We offer a wide variety of services, from grant assistance to doing community outreach, reuse visioning, putting on workshops, education events. Really, our goal is to fill a gap or meet a need within a community or an organization to get a project going, to educate, whatever kind of that gap, that need is. We can come in and assist with that to get folks moving, going, or get a project, you know, started or unstuck. Sometimes we like to say all of the services that we provide are at no cost to the community, nonprofit organization. We can support state governments, communities, local governments, counties, regional councils, EDAs. The only folks, I guess, that we really don't support one-on-one are private entities, because it's a federally funded program. It's really geared towards helping the nonprofits, local governments, and things like that. That being said, we preach and we totally understand and value, you know, the public-private partnership. And so, you know, we're willing to work with private people as long as we can bring in that local community perspective. So that's really a broad overview of TAB. And then I'm going to pass it to my colleague Kate, and she can talk a little bit more maybe about specifics for Red Lodge.
Yeah, and I think this is a point of confusion that we encounter on a pretty regular basis. Why is Kansas State University coming into Montana to provide assistance? Why aren't we going to a Montana university or another Montana organization? And so the answer to that is, so we're based in Kansas, but we oversee services to 21 states, basically all the states between Ohio and Utah. So Kansas is sort of the heart of that region. But we do a lot of work in Montana, and as Maggie mentioned, all of our work is provided at no cost. So that's one of the benefits of going through our program versus a locally based brownfields expert. Oftentimes we do also work with partners that are local to the communities that we're working in. So, you know, despite the fact that we have Kansas in our name, we're very familiar with Montana, and we've done a lot of work in Montana communities. So Myrna reached out to us a couple weeks before Christmas, I think, and indicated that the Red Lodge URA is in need of some assistance, but that's pretty much all the information that we have, I think, so far. But I think we're thinking about community engagement. So, I'm happy for this to be a conversation between Myrna and the board and us about what you're looking for specifically and what we can do to provide assistance.
Sounds good. So when we initially talked about this as a board, we talked about the visioning exercise to guide the future direction of the urban renewal district. And I think that was, does anybody want to just elaborate? Maybe Joanne, you were the most eloquent. Do you want to just elaborate on what you thought that was appealing? And Jeremy, you had some good words for that too. I don't know, maybe you guys can share a little bit of your thoughts.
Well, as I kind of said in my introduction, I can see what this area could be. And then it could be, I've seen designs from other community designers where it's a mixture of commercial and residential and a thriving part of Red Lodge, whereas now you drive into town, and you haven't been here, but I do hope you'll get to come. You drive into town, and the first impression is not very good. And that's why our former planner thought it would be a good idea to develop this district so that we could have input on improving this area of town. And we have a wonderful anchor now. Someone has bought our old pea cannery, an artist, sculptor, and he is totally redoing it. He's going to make it a state-of-the-art art gallery for large sculptures, and artists can come and have studios there and put on permanent exhibits. And so it's going to be an amazing northern entrance to our town. So we want to be able to visualize how we can complement that with some wonderful structures that will take care of so many different needs in our community. But one of our greatest needs, I said I'm unbiased this way, and I am, because one of our greatest needs is workforce housing. And we need housing for school teachers, we need housing for nurses, all the people that make Red Lodge such a wonderful place. So, and Jeff holds my feet to the fire and says, we got to keep this vision in mind. If we develop a vision for what it should look like, then that will guide our decisions and how we can assist in making it happen.
Yeah, I'm in line with what Joanne was saying is, one of the things, I guess I'm thinking in terms of what a PUD does in terms of getting a little bit more specific. I mean, we've got the growth policy, gives some broad direction for the community entrances. This is kind of a subset of that. So while the growth policy kind of provides that overarching goals and objectives, I guess my thinking is similar to what Joanne was saying is now we've taken a piece of that and focusing in on trying to define a little bit more in terms of specifics. What kinds of development do we want within the URD? What kinds of designs or what kinds of information can be provided to developers coming in on what design features are acceptable and in conformance with what the community wants. So that's one aspect of it. And I guess, just looking at the URD plan a little bit today, and we have in there examples of the types of building designs that, that kind of help inform the discussion with developers and what the community is looking for. The other part of a visioning exercise, I guess, involves the community in terms of what does the community want and see. So I guess my question along those lines is, what kinds of public outreach and who facilitates that in sort of going through that exercise, developing, kind of the vision for the URD along with goals and objectives and action items to achieve those goals and objectives. That's kind of what I sort of think about when we talk about visioning.
I have a question to ask since I'm so new. When we talk about a visioning exercise, may I assume that that would include public participation and involvement? So it's not just going to be one meeting where we decide something and then here it is. Instead, it's going to require focus groups and lots of public meetings and public input. So it will be a fairly lengthy process, I would guess.
That's my
Okay.
idea of visioning.
Just wanted to clear my vision. Yeah,
That
thank
it's
you.
not just us, focused on us developing
Yeah.
that it's the community that's providing
Sure.
input. And it
Got
generally
it.
takes more than one meeting to go through those exercises.
So we started by having we were gonna have a walkabout for the whole community to walk around. Well, we ended up just dealing with the pea cannery because it took hours, but it was so fascinating. But we had, 30-some people already that
Yep.
came from all over the community and were really inspired
Great.
by what they were doing. So that's the ideas that we want to involve, everybody. But I think they'll probably have
Yeah.
some good ideas on that.
Kate and Maggie, what do you have to say about the question of one of our new board members? We all have that question.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it is best to have ongoing community input into these vision documents. We typically have, at least between 1 and 3, I would say, typically community meetings. We will also supplement those with online meetings or surveys for people who just, aren't comfortable voicing their opinion in public, don't have time to come to a meeting, just to help capture kind of different demographics within a community. What you've kind of described thus far I worked on a project in Buffalo, Oklahoma, a couple of years ago with kind of a similar challenge in their downtown, just a lot of vacancy, a lot of absentee property owners. I think very similar problems to a couple communities I worked with in Montana, although I'm not specifically familiar with Red Lodge, but kind of sounds like a very similar situation. And we had a lot of success and a really great experience arranging a input meeting with high school students. And they just had some awesome input. We really enjoyed that. And so I would encourage, or, I would suggest that as kind of part of your outreach here. So yeah, what you've described thus far is very consistent with many of our TAB projects. So oftentimes we'll start out with community engagement and, depending on the project, sometimes that's for a single site that's been an issue in the community. But sometimes that's for a downtown area, a corridor, in your case, an urban renewal district. I don't know. I know somebody just sent the link in the chat. I don't know how big it is. But maybe a subsection of the urban renewal district. It just kind of depends. So yeah, generally start with a community engagement meeting, solicit feedback. Oftentimes we'll follow up with a survey, just to, again, capture any voices that were missed in that initial meeting. Then in your case, what it sounds like would be helpful is a revitalization plan and some conceptual renderings that show a revitalized urban renewal district. And taking those images and then maybe kind of gut checking them with the public in another meeting and saying, here's what we heard from you, here's what we developed from that, what are we doing wrong here, what are we doing right? And, what tweaks would you like to see? And then we go back and revise those documents kind of based on what the community has asked for. I heard I think the commissioners mention a PUD. One of the things that we don't typically do is anything that requires kind of legal review and approval. So something like a zoning code, we could certainly make design recommendations, but we don't typically, I don't think we ever actually write zoning updates, but we could definitely provide recommendations for those. But it would be a little bit outside of our typical scope of work to do that sort of thing. But again, we could make recommendations. So it's kind of community engagement and then a revitalization plan. One of the things we can also do that's been a very popular deliverable are what we call resource roadmaps. And those are documents that identify different federal, state, and private sources of funding that can be used to achieve the vision that has been described in the vision document. So taking that need for affordable housing and economic development, looking for programs on all of those levels that can be used to fund those improvements to minimize, your financial outlay for these projects and these improvements. And that tends to be a pretty useful deliverable, I think, in just helping communities figure out which funding sources are most appropriate and how they should structure their approach to them based on their priorities, which is another thing we can kind of ask for input on during community meetings.
What was the term you used for that funding deliverable?
Resource roadmap. Sometimes we call them redevelopment roadmaps.
Thank you.
Same thing, basically.
If you want, I can share my screen real quick. We did not, it was a very simple, because we had a very short window, but we did some work up in Whitefish, Montana, that, again, they were kind of faced with oh wait, no, that's not what I want to do. Sorry. There we go. They were thinking about redevelopment options and trying to engage and solicit input from their group as well as the local community on what they would like to see, because some of the changes were going to potentially modify like the look and feel of their downtown. And so we did some, community engagement, and then we developed these reuse renderings. And this, I think, is going to what was mentioned earlier about what kind of information could you provide to developers. And so not only did we take that community feedback and input, but we looked at, okay, well, what are planning or what are some existing zoning requirements? And if you were to, put a building, or do you want a building that hall? Like, this is height, this is how it actually might look. I'm just going to kind of scroll through these as I'm talking. And so we were able to put this together, again, that included some requirements and then just visualizations for, okay, if we do this, this is what it could potentially look like. Just to give the community, the URA, the city, an idea and sense for what are we talking about if we implement certain requirements or do redevelopment a certain way. So this is just one example of a deliverable based on some community engagement that we did. So I just wanted to share that so you guys can kind of have a visual for a little bit of what we're talking about.
Just a quick question. When you started talking, you mentioned brownfields, and I understand that's kind of your background. We have a few areas in our URD that are potentially brownfields, that will need abatement. Is that something you all can advise on? And I mean, part of it's actually a former EPA Superfund. So, I'm not sure if anyone in here is real knowledgeable in those areas, but we do have some areas that will require some level of abatement before they're developable. And is that, and I guess we need to be focused or keeping that in mind for those areas when we have our conversations with you. And
Yeah. And absolutely, that's another piece where we can bring in that education or that experience and expertise. I mean, me personally, I'm an environmental scientist, and that's a lot of my background. I've assessed a lot of sites, developed cleanup plans, and just even talked about, yeah, like, you know, how clean is clean for certain reuses? What can you do as interim reuses while you're addressing this potential problem? And you're right. I mean, that is kind of the crux of brownfields, or you have a Superfund site, you might have properties adjacent to, like, what does that mean? And sometimes it's just providing that education to local residents in the community at large about what's feasible, not only financially, but yeah, based on the contamination that's there, what are cleanup options, and just having those conversations, but also built into this larger vision and goal and understanding it might take longer to redevelop site A than it does site B based on environmental issues and hazards associated with it. So yeah, that's another avenue we can certainly help with.
Great.
I'm also gonna just add on and say, our goal is never to tell you specifically what to do. It is to give you information to make the best and most informed decisions on your own. So we're not going to come and tell you what to do with your brownfield site, but we can, give you the information that you need to address it and point you in the right direction of the people who, have funding and different resources available to address those sites.
Maggie and Kate, what kind of time frame would you usually figure that I know you'd have to make the trip to Montana, and I don't know how long you have that you can stay and do all these activities. Would it be a week or 2 weeks?
It really varies. Typically, and I mean, what I'm hearing in kind of one of the frameworks that we do, especially if we are talking about a longer term where we solicit some initial feedback, do some research, come back, okay, here's what we thought, come back out for another feedback loop, either with stakeholders or the community at large again, redefine. I mean, the whole process can take anywhere from 6 to 9 months, sometimes even a year, again, just based on the community schedule. Our first visit, yeah, we would come out and I'd say spend, as much time as we would need to get a sense for the community, visit the sites, do an in-person meeting. It really just varies based on what we decide we end up doing. But traveling for us is not an issue. We travel all over. We provide support in 21 states. Like Kate mentioned, we're Kansas State, that's in Kansas, but yeah, she's in Denver. I'm in Kansas. We also have partners, Montana Tech University, they're in Butte. They're one of our partners. They've been doing some work and projects for us in Deer Lodge in that area. So we really try to meet the needs and fit the schedule of the community. I know that's not a definitive answer, but it really depends on the scope of work that we end up agreeing to.
Yep. No, that's great. I didn't know if you'd be able to make multiple trips up to Red Lodge to do this. And so, okay.
Yeah.
I've never stayed anywhere for a full week. Maybe Maggie has, but typically, there's only so much you can do within a specific meeting, and people have other things going on in their lives. Typically, I would say 2 to 3 days for an initial visit, and then follow that up with 1 or 2 additional visits would be pretty typical.
I think the project we just finished in Roundup, well, let's say in the last year, I've been to Roundup 3 times.
Yeah.
So
We're nicer than Roundup.
What's that?
Roundup is kind of going on. I also work in Roundup, help the folks in Roundup a little bit. They're pretty awesome.
They are.
Okay, I have a question.
They're very nice.
So we are an all-volunteer board. We do not have a planner at the moment.
Can I tweak that?
Well, I'm just like, how do we pull this off? Like, we don't have a local staff person, you know what I mean? Like, Myrna's got other things going on, and we're all volunteers, and our mayor is amazing, but she has other things going on too.
Our process, sorry, keep going, Tara.
Well, and then maybe the mayor has an announcement for us.
Oh, no, I was just, we do have a staff, but we have a contract planner that works with, in fact, you may have worked with in some of the other cities, so we just don't have a staff person who's our planner, we use a contract planner.
And that's totally fine. So the way that our projects typically work, the K-State team is fairly small. It's really just me and Maggie here who are operating in Region 8. And at this time, we have probably 10 projects that are going on. And so it's just not possible for the two of us to do all of them. So we, as the K-State Tab organization, we have our staff, and then we have a network of partners. And I referenced these a little bit earlier. We have just over 40 partners that are located all throughout our service area, including a couple in Montana and kind of the general Mountain West, who are pretty close by. It would be a little bit less onerous for a trip for them. So usually it's our team kind of doing the management of the project. And then we work with a partner to actually conduct the work. So I'm a planner by training, but I think that this project, just with the scope of the size of it, sounds like a lot for one person. So I think we would probably pull in a partner who has expertise in creating these area-wide plans, who would be able to contribute to the project. And you guys as the board participate, let's say a couple hours a month. At the absolute maximum, it would maybe be a little bit more time commitment when we're there in person. But your role is, advisory and answering our questions about the community, pointing us in the direction of your comp plan and any kind of, other information that we're looking for. Referrals to community members who are knowledgeable about the local real estate market, that sort of thing. Where most of that can be done by emails and then kind of a virtual meetings, on a not super frequent basis. So we're not asking a ton of your time because we know everyone is very busy, and as a volunteer board, it's a lot to ask of somebody to put in 40 hours a week.
I have a follow-up question to that. So when you work with individual communities, do you typically interact with city staff? I mean, is that your point of contact? And since we don't have a city planner full-time, would the point of contact be with our contract planner?
So typically our point of contact is, it kind of varies. It could be the contract planner. I don't really know on what percentage of their contract they're involved with Red Lodge specifically. If they do 10%, if 10% of their time is dedicated towards Red Lodge, that's probably, they're not going to be knowledgeable enough to really lead the project or have enough time committed to it. If you have a city clerk, or, that we work with mayors pretty often. Really any person who has the capacity to just act as a point person and can direct us to the right location. It doesn't have to be any particular skill set.
Okay, I have another question. So we have been up and going for 2 years, 3 years? 2 years? And we, to get our renewal district created, we have a renewal plan that, so it's not that old.
2022, I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So I'm not sure we have a plan, and it's not short. And actually, I see James, the author, our former planner, is on, and he used to be on in our agency board too. So it's 45 pages long. So I'm just curious, how do you, in a case like this where it's only a couple of years old and it's a plan for the district, but what we're looking for is to kind of bring a vision, bring more specificity to that, right?
Yeah.
So that we can make decisions. So where we're at right now is we don't have, because of the economy and what's been happening with building prices and interest rates, we haven't had a lot of projects, but we anticipate that we will have projects coming forward to us. And so as we were looking at one potential project, we were like, okay, we need a vision, you know, like for how to make decisions going forward beyond what we have for the plan. Do you have any comments on that? Like, I don't know, it's not exactly a question, but like, just a little bit more information, like, we have this plan, it's not that old. I don't know, do you have any thoughts on what I just
Yeah,
said?
is that the North Community Entrance Urban Renewal Plan?
Yep, that's it, yep.
Okay, yeah, I'm just kind of skimming through this now, and it looks like a lot of great information about like real estate market, implementation, and some precedent imagery, financial information, good stuff. Okay, so just based on like a quick skim through this plan, you know, I think what is maybe missing is more detailed renderings of what this area could look like post-development. So doing just some kind of inspirational images that are based in reality, but would kind of show what this area would look like after redevelopment, and some investment in this area, and not doing necessarily a full-blown plan, but kind of doing maybe a 2D dimensional plan that shows redevelopment areas, maybe some areas to focus in, and then doing a couple, as Maggie showed, kind of the street level rendering views of, you know, what these streets could look like post-development.
Mhm.
But if that doesn't sound useful, you know, if the resource roadmap feels like a better fit, then we could just narrow it down to that.
There's some heads nodding here.
Yeah, that whitefish example you showed seemed like definitely a big piece of probably what we'd want, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's why I brought up the brownfield areas, because I think we're gonna need advice on how to mitigate and walk through that, because there's acres of lands that are literally undevelopable in their current state, and, they will need some serious mitigation before they are, and some of them are currently in use, and others, like Kroll, is moving. And I don't know what their plans are for that site, but that site is gonna be a mess for years until it gets dealt with, so.
So we actually talked about that with Myrna at the last meeting, and I don't think you
No, I
must not have
wasn't
been
able to participate.
right, or, I think it was. So we were talking about doing a phase one, maybe a phase two EPA assessment. They have
Yeah.
a grant to do
Yeah.
that.
That's
Yeah.
great, that's good news.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the actual technical environmental reports, the phase one and the phase two environmental site assessments and the cleanup planning, we don't handle that at KSU TAB, but we're focused more on kind of the redevelopment aspect of things. The technical environmental stuff typically goes through either Montana DEQ, or if your, community or your regional organization has brownfields funding, then they kind of handle the more technical aspects of the brownfields. That being said, we're very experienced in reading and interpreting those reports. We just our funding doesn't cover the preparation of those materials. It's a separate bucket of federal funding, essentially. But we work together very closely with these regional organizations and states all the time.
So there's two things, I guess, that strike me. One is those renderings. I think they're visually,
That would be very helpful.
really visually helpful when sort of seeing what the future might look like. The other example that I think I brought to the agent to one of our meetings when we were reviewing different URAs or URDs, was the North 7th Avenue in Bozeman, where they had rendered what their vision of North Avenue, or 7th Avenue is, which is, for those of us that have gone into Bozeman on North 7th for all the years, what they have envisioned for that street is far different than the typical commercial strip that exists there today. In fact, they've started that conversion in the last time I drove down North Seventh. So, and then the Whitefish example. So
Mhm.
I think bringing those kinds of things to a public meeting
Yes,
to get input from the community on what they're, it helps them visualize. And if they like that vision, then that kind of helps kind of focus where to go. The other thing, kind of based on what you're talking about, Perry, is it kind of strikes me, I guess, one of the needs for the URD is an assessment.
Right.
Of where are the brownfields? What are the hazards? What needs to be mitigated? So that to me is pretty critical, because you can't move forward until you have those issues addressed.
pretty much everything between Beartooth Electric and, Mead is gonna have issues, like, just because of their historic use. And that's just on that side of the street, and then over where the, like, trying to think of Dwayne's business across the street, that, you know, he's used that for construction equipment, and I can assure you there's been fuel spillage, et cetera, over the decades, you know, so.
So one
I
of the deliverables that we provide on a pretty regular basis is, or things we can help communities with, is developing what we call a brownfields inventory. So creating a map of either known brownfield sites or suspected sites with contamination. Just so you have that kind of at the ready, and you can start prioritizing your requests for assessment dollars, and maybe even inform your own application for an EPA brownfield grant.
Great.
So yeah, I'm thinking, just kind of based on what you've said here, what I'm thinking is maybe starting out with a brownfield inventory, and possibly some community engagement, and then maybe focusing those renderings, doing some site-specific renderings on a couple of those brownfield sites. And I don't know yet how those kind of figure into the overall URA boundaries, but I'm sure there's many within that boundary. And then maybe, so focusing on, 3 to 5 sites, doing a few kind of conceptual renderings for those sites. And then maybe also fitting those within a larger, more bird's eye view of the urban renewal district that kind of incorporates those new developments into that bird's eye view of the district.
I think we're all nodding at that.
Okay. And then, so typically that's kind of phase one in incorporating community engagement in there. And then once that's complete and we've narrowed down a vision, then moving into a resource roadmap where we identify different funding sources that can be used to implement the vision.
Wow, that sounds really cool.
Great. I'm gonna write it down before I forget it.
So I guess, do we sort of need a project outline or project plan in terms of what the objectives and the scope of work is that something you would provide to us to kind of comment on and then give feedback to you? Would that be kind of the next step?
That is exactly, the next step is we'll put together, that overall scope, take what we understood from this meeting and send it back out to you guys, make sure we're all on the same page. If you guys have feedback, changes, and then we can get that ironed out, and then we will, probably at the same time, Kate and I will be working on evaluating our partners of who we want to bring in to help us with some of this. And then once we're aligned on a scope, we set up kind of a schedule timeline and get to work.
Sounds great.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, so just because it's a little bit of a larger project in scope, I would expect it'll probably take a couple months before we could arrange a community visit. So just to level set expectations, we're not going to be out there next week or probably even next month to do a community engagement meeting. And with those meetings, you typically want, 6 weeks to a month to 3 to 6 weeks to notice that meeting so that people have time to plan to attend it. So just want to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of timing. It's not going to be an immediate start, unfortunately.
Perfect.
Sound okay?
I think we all understand.
Yep.
Yeah.
It'll be warmer then too, so.
It, hopefully.
June is more than 50.
That kind of fits in with the timeline for
Yeah.
completing our downtown master plan and
Mhm.
growth policy, so this would be a nice follow-up once those are in place too.
So you have a downtown plan and a growth policy. When are those slated to be completed?
Yeah, we're in the process of making the final edit, our final review of which would become the 2025 growth policy.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's a review and update of the 2022 growth policy. And then we've also been doing a review of the downtown master plan, which is actually outside of the URD, but it's adjacent to the URD.
The draft planning one is on the city website.
Oh, okay, great.
There'll be some updates coming too. So to answer your question, we're looking at probably Q1 on both of those, but maybe toward the latter part of Q1.
Okay, great. So in the very near future.
Great. Is there anything else that you need from us, or anything else?
It would be great for you all to just let us know what, nominate a point person within the board for us to kind of direct our correspondence to. And we'll CC everyone, but just to have, a designated point person who can kind of be the mouthpiece for your organization would be helpful. It'll probably take Maggie and I a couple of weeks to talk about partners, put together a draft scope of work, but I think we can, is your next meeting a month from now?
Yeah, our next meeting is February 10th.
February 10th, okay. I would imagine that we would have an update for you by then. Do you think that's realistic, Maggie?
Yeah.
Are you willing to be our contact person, Tara?
Yep, I can do that.
Okay, and I don't know that we have the whole board's contact information, so if there's either a listserv or Tara, if you could just send out like an intro email with everyone's email, that would be super helpful.
What did you say, Mayor? I couldn't.
Oh, just for our point, so it'll probably be me, Brian Hanna, who's, I'll expound on that more later, and then you for urban renewal input.
Okay.
Sorry, was that a list of 3 people?
Yep, so mayor is Dave
Uh-huh.
Westwood, Brian Hanna, that's city staff, and Tara from the URA. Which, from the UR folks. The URD
Great.
folks.
Any
Well,
other
maybe I'll just-
questions for us?
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
I always have one last question, and that is, what would we have asked if we had only been smart enough to ask it?
Great question.
I think we covered it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we planning on having you back then for a brief follow-up at the February meeting? Is that what I understood?
Save us a spot on the agenda. We will let Tara and the mayor and Brian know. We'll send out an update via email, and if we think it merits a longer discussion, then I think we can plan to join the meeting if there's time for us.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
Well,
thank you so much for
Yeah.
raising this as a possibility. Wow.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Bye.
you. Wonderful.
Okay, well, that was kind of cool.
Yes.
Great. Can I,
Yep.
something popped up because of what you were saying. We were gonna do our walkabout. I think we should do that very soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can point out some of those areas
Well,
where you see that are.
You've been here since the seventies, and, I mean,
Well,
there used to be two gas stations
That's right.
between,
That's right,
where Bojo's Coffee and,
right.
the fire station, and,
Yeah.
there's remnants of one still
I think it
there.
would be really helpful if we got a map and we walked around and said, pay attention to this, and this is
Yeah.
potentially something that needs to be cleaned up. And would you be willing to do that?
Just
With
kind
that-
of spearhead our
Oh,
walk.
yeah.
All of us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, given the time of year, doesn't Kurt have a larger vehicle that'll hold a dozen or so
Oh, they
people in it?
do?
Yeah, they do have the
Wanna
new bus.
use a cart vehicle? That's
That'd be cool.
okay.
That'd be cool.
Yes, and I'd like to suggest too that part of it should be on foot, because we will be thinking about pedestrian access to all of this,
That's right.
and that's really important.
Well, I had a trail kind of figured out that you could see a lot from, and it took 20 minutes,
Great.
25 minutes to walk.
Great.
So
Mhm.
if we did that, we'd see an overview of most of the issues, but not all of them. And you
Yeah.
could, when we were up on a higher hill, you could say, now that's a problem.
Yeah, well, it's just,
And we could
I
see
suspect
into that.
some of those areas have never been developed or nothing's been done with them because there's abatement necessary. And, I
That's
think we need to bring, DEQ in and have them do some site surveys.
right.
I mean, they're local businesses, I mean, they're,
But I think we should do a tour first, just to
Mhm.
get a
Yeah.
feel for it.
and we don't wanna step on people's toes, but, we also wanna be environmentally sensitive. Some of that is going into the groundwater, which is going into Rock Creek too, so.
Inconceivable.
Yeah.
Uh,
high school, sorry, Sarah, the
Mhm.
high school, new high school was built on a brownfield.
Yeah,
And all of that was DEQ, so all of those studies are already done.
Oh, good.
well, I'm talking more about what with propane.
Well, exactly, but then they kind of went down the hill in the adjacent such in the study, so there's probably a little bit of the.
So they did some drilling and,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
So they would know if there's any,
Mhm.
That's a
So
good
just
point.
contacting and finding those studies too would be super helpful.
Yeah.
useful
Did they do
information,
the
yeah.
studies when they were talking about doing the soccer field?
Yep,
up there,
absolutely.
too?
Mhm.
They also did studies more recently. on
More
that.
recently with the top of the hill, that's Colmeyer Park and the top of the
Yeah,
hill.
the sports fields and all that,
Right.
okay, that's good information.
It is good information.
Thank you, Marcy.
do we want to schedule that right now, or what do we want to, we don't have it on our agenda, but I think it's, fits under other business. We do
Nice
have,
if we could do it before the next meeting
Yeah.
when we talk to them.
mhm. Okay.
I wonder, I'm almost guessing there would be a rerun when they do come out for that initial 2 or
Oh,
3 day
definitely,
visit.
yeah,
Mhm.
there would be a rerun, but if we could look at it first, I think
Yep.
it would be helpful.
We could do 2 weeks from this Monday to make it the midpoint, just
Mhm.
as a shot in the dark. That would be the 27th.
Oh, I'm not gonna be here.
Oh, okay, maybe not the 27th.
No,
You could
wait a
do
minute,
next
maybe
week,
I'm
I don't
gonna
know.
be here. I'm not sure yet, maybe I am gonna be here.
Okay.
27th is, or the third.
Or the 3rd.
We do it the third? Why does everybody else?
Either date works for me, so,
Hmm?
either
Either
date's
one.
good for me,
Mhm.
so.
Can pencil in the 3rd and see how it develops, I guess.
Yep. Okay, let's put a tentative time, 'cause just so we can sketch it out and then we can just confirm.
Be nice if we did it with daylight.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need to, we're gonna use the chart van, we need to find out if it's good.
I wonder if it'd be helpful to bring up the parcel map and actually
It would,
mark the parcels.
Yeah,
it would be nice to have a map, a good map, yeah.
Or if anybody has Onyx as you go around, you can
What's
just,
that?
Yeah.
if you have Onyx, you can just go around or Cadastral online. Onyx is just an overlay of Cadastral and GPS, so.
I have Onyx.
Mayor, can you come with us on our walking tour on the 3rd
It looks like it's free on my schedule.
during the daylight?
Yeah.
3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, like what,
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock?
Yeah, 4, it'll get dark on us.
Yeah, it
Before.
starts the sun goes down behind the mountains.
Yeah.
So reach out to the community foundation to see if the large vehicle may be available, that shuttle us between walking spots. You could do a walk down here and a drive up to the top, and you said?
Well, no, the walking one I was thinking of doing it's just a little bit elevated. It's right under the playing fields. It's kind of wooded, and there's a road there, and it's high enough you really can see a lot of the
Are you talking on the east bench, or up like the soccer field?
Yeah.
up by the soccer.
Okay.
Well, just below, where the baseball field is.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
there's a playground there, and there's a road that you walk, and you can see a lot from there. So you don't have to go really high.
So yes or no, I'm trying to chase down a vehicle.
Oh,
We
do you
don't-
guys want to walk it or do you want to drive it? I think there's a 9-passenger.
I'm okay walking it, but I don't
Yeah,
want to speak
I'm
for
okay
everybody.
walking it,
I'm okay
Yeah.
walking.
but
I think walking it would be great.
Yeah.
That really gives us a sense of how big is it and what does it feel like to be there.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's 6 feet of snow.
We won't walk all of it in 20 minutes, I can tell
No,
you that.
probably
Well, I did,
But she tested it.
I tested it with my dog.
Including up the hill and,
No,
Yeah.
no,
Oh, no,
just up
yeah.
that one I'm talking about.
yeah.
So,
I'm just saying, the whole district is bigger than that.
oh, it is.
Yeah,
because
she walked it
includes
with
the playing
walking.
fields and
Yeah.
everything, but the district that's developable is mostly, you walk around, is mostly, and you walk up to the
Coleman
Mountain
Park.
View.
Yeah.
No, Mountain Springs?
Villa? Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, Mountain Springs Villa over here on the west side.
No, the trailers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's Mountain Springs Villa.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. Where should we meet? Let's have a meeting point. Should we say,
So,
we could say Town Pump, because then it's like warm in there.
yeah, it's Town Buffer or the other one.
Senate.
Senate, Senate.
Zip trip.
I think the Senate,
Yeah, okay.
because Town Pump is out of our area.
Oh, perfect. So we're gonna say 3 PM at Zip Trip. Is that okay to meet at a convenience?
At the slushy machine, or?
Yeah, at the slushy machine.
It's a public location, kind of.
Yeah,
What's the date?
February 3rd.
February 3rd. February 3rd, 3 PM, meet at Zip Trip by the slushy machine.
And my dog and I will.
And they'll have that in the notes, I know.
Yep,
Okay,
I'm,
forget.
I'm right now.
That was in the summer.
Yeah, might be, yeah. Okay, thank
But
you
I
all.
got my walking group ladies, I
Uh-huh.
took them on it, so they had a lot of comments.
Yes,
It's been tested.
it's been tested, vetted, yes. Okay, so I mean, I feel like if we're meeting and we have a quorum, we should probably just notice it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I'll just put an agenda together. And,
Yeah, if you notice it, if somebody else wants to come.
yeah, more the merrier, it's fine. Okay, so I will do that.
Well, we won't be holding any votes or anything on the walk.
We're not, no, we will, and we don't really even have an agenda except walking and looking and,
But Terry, if you have a way of keeping notes on the map, on the app that you guys had,
It's just an overlay, it's kind of like a GPS map, but it
well,
gives you
if you
property
have some
lines
way of
and,
noting, maybe a
I don't
GPS
know.
location.
we'll have to
and
figure it
this
out.
is
What I would do is
what
just
we
do
need to worry about.
screenshots when you're there, like this
Yeah.
one, and then do a notepad.
It'll have,
and
it'll
then
have
you
the
can enter
location on
comments
it,
to it.
yeah, good idea, thank you.
okay, I'm feeling like we need to move on to the next topic, because that's also kind of a big one. Anything else before we do that? Are we good with this?
I'm excited.
Yep.
I do have to get out of here before quarter till, so just gonna throw that out there if we can.
Okay,
Right.
so the next item is, discuss and decide on criteria and rationale regarding expansion of urban renewal district to include additional parcels on top of Brewery Hill. Okay, so now that I'm reading this, I think we had tasked the planner to do this,
We
didn't we?
did.
Yeah,
We asked for a planner to give us
this question,
Alan, I know,
ruling,
yeah, an opinion,
Recommendation.
yeah,
depending on what is like,
yes.
that was in the minutes.
Well,
Well,
I guess just throw in while Dave's looking it up, or Mayor is, our URD was established by the city council, and it's pretty specific, and that location's not in there, so I think we would have to, at minimum, go to council and have them determine that that's not our determination, that would be their
You
determination.
guys are making a recommendation whether you think we ought to or not, then it's
Yeah.
a council action.
Well, and I would only throw out that Senate Bill 1 is supposed to contain language to make
That's right.
defining blight more
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
So I would lean toward waiting until that's actually out
Mm.
before we.
I think you're right, because one of the goals of that was to define blight
Yeah,
and to define the specificity.
Yeah.
It had to satisfy certain criteria. I
Mhm.
think it would be premature to do that.
so,
I was looking at the plan, and it says in there, you have to have identify at least three,
Right,
meet at least three of the blight criteria
Right.
that's listed. The other thing I noticed, which I may or may not have an impact on whether this is even needed or not, is I was reading in the plan where it says TIF funds can be applied to areas adjacent to the URD as well.
ah,
So, that might be worth, that's in our plan, but whether that, I'm assuming that's a valid interpretation, and if it is, then do we really need to extend the URD or go through that exercise?
Maybe we can get a kind of a thought from the contract planner on that too.
yeah, well, Jeremy, I think that's one of the issues, that the reason that it's in the legislature again is it's been stretched.
It's fuzzy, right?
And it's fuzzy, and there's been,
Well-
the utilization has been,
And the legislature feels from conversations I've had with our representatives and them representing the rest of the legislators, that they feel that cities have been abusing it,
yeah,
and that in reality, URDs have one function and one function only, and that is to increase the tax base so that the rest of the city doesn't have to pay increased taxes.
Mhm.
That's their one and single driver. And so anytime you start doing projects, they kind of grumble and growl a little bit at it, which I thought was interesting. I did notice something one of the KSU folks said right up front that I thought was interesting, because they said any vacant or underutilized, and it'll be curious to see if that Senate Bill 1 takes that language into account or not, because that's to me was a conflict from kind of what we've been thinking about. No, it's gotta be icky and gross and damaged in an ex-gravel pit or a concrete, or something else.
do we have a lobbyist that we work with?
Pardon?
Does the city have a lobbyist that they work with?
All the municipalities do, so yeah,
Okay.
the League of Cities has a lobbyist that's very involved and working to protect it for us, so,
There's also a TIF working group that kind
Yeah,
of coordinates a little bit.
Also, I think, since this would be an amendment to the plan,
Mhm.
right? It should also go through, past the planning board to make, and reading through the plan, it's the role of the planning board is to ensure that it's in conformance with the growth policy, and then if it is, the planning board then passes a recommendation on to
So-
city council.
Can I ask a question of you, Mayor? I guess, I suspect that this is the case, but I want to verify. In order for that, like, if this was gonna become low-income housing or workforce housing, and the city were gonna require or seek, community development block grant money,
Right.
would being a part of the TIF necessitate that, or part of the URD?
let me clarify something that I think I heard in the question. So the city would not, like if it's light tech housing or something,
Right.
the city is not going to get into the real estate business. So that's not part of the goal here, because then you also get into who, in fact, and interestingly enough, it's what my mind has been working with all day, and I know it sounds weird to commingle or befuddle URD and resort tax, but there's a thing right now in Big Sky where they're looking at resort tax and making that 1%, and Jeremy's on both of them. There's somebody who brought up this idea of making the 1% project on resort tax be available for workforce housing, that's a project. And it's like, okay, but who qualifies and who's gonna be, it just opens up a whole barrel of monkeys that you don't wanna go into.
Sure.
And so we don't wanna go there. So there are other developers that come in.
Mm-hmm.
From a role of the city, we're trying to facilitate that. One of the things that will be happening tomorrow night at council is we are actually requesting and sending, a request to the planning board to look at a couple of specific parcels of land that have been identified as by staff and myself as, that's not right. So for instance, the bowling alley and that whole block is actually a P1, which has no buildings. And so we're gonna basically go to them and say, come back with the highest and best use for this land, which is a step for kind of this as well.
Sure.
And ultimately, that also is a council action. The part that will be a little tricky in that is there are some specific projects that may benefit, but those almost have to be, those aren't driving it, those are secondary, right? We're saying, like the URD, the visioning, here's what it looks like. Once we know what it looks like, now let's go out and do that.
Mm-hmm.
What we have to be careful and avoid is projects coming in and driving us.
Sure.
Because that doesn't yield the cohesive result we're going for.
No.
Right.
Did I get the
Yes.
question in there?
You did.
So like I said, we're trying to figure out how to facilitate and allow the different sectors to come in and do that, but the city itself will not be the recipient of those. We're not getting into the real estate business.
Sure.
Okay, so let's get back to our agenda here. The item that we're on is discuss and decide on criteria and rationale regarding expansion of urban renewal district to include additional parcels. So at our last meeting, we talked, we felt like if we were going to include it, we needed to have reasons why.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought we had tasked the planner, but that did not get conveyed.
Yep, I dropped that one apparently.
Okay, so, we still want that. We want a professional planner to give some criteria and rationale, if there is any, for including that. And then somebody just said something else that they need to consider. Oh, so,
Well, the other one would be which parcels are we,
Yeah.
how is the boundary gonna be defined?
Yeah.
Which parcels does that include,
Well,
rather?
and almost more important, which do they exclude?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just saying we're gonna extend and just draw a line.
Yeah.
Isn't,
Just
we need a specific what the boundary will be, and which parcels are included.
to shorten the conversation, would a motion be appropriate to table this until Senate Bill, you know, the legislature's made a definitive answer on blight
I'd be happy to chat about it once we get something from the planner too.
and the planner.
Yeah.
I mean, so we,
Both of those would be good.
those two conditions, you know, when we have that, then we can carry it, and then we can expand, you know, where else are we talking about?
right, yeah, I just wanted to get us back because we were wandering a bit.
Yes.
So getting back to the agenda item. So we're having the planner, but the timing on that is the question. Do we want to wait until this is, it could be, well, doesn't it take, I don't,
But I think Perry's motion was put both of those in.
okay.
To include both of those, yeah.
And I would think if I was the, and we've talked about this with the planner, and I apologize because I go to an awful lot of meetings with him. I was thinking that one of them was here, that they were present in here, but it seems to me like part of their feedback is some of that wait and see what Senate Bill 1
Well,
ends up
or if
materializing
they
and
even,
looking
it
like.
could
Yeah,
get
we-
killed.
we do
TIF
get
could
them
get
in-
killed altogether.
Yeah.
That is the aim
That's
of a
Yeah,
lot of.
what they, yes and no, they're not gonna actually kill the TIF, they'll just make it so that you don't keep the money from the TIF district once the TIF district is done, which means everybody will kill it themselves. So
We
that
had
doesn't go on.
Jennifer Olson, who is, leading part of this for,
Kelly Lynch and group.
Montana
Mhm.
Municipal, what do you call it?
League
League of Cities.
Right.
Anyways, she spoke at our last meeting
Oh, okay.
at length on this whole topic, so. Okay, so,
I would move to table this until we have more information from the planner and the Senate Bill 1,
Mhm.
just to see.
So
the
you guys are
language.
tabling it, but I have an action item to get you the more information from the planner, have them attend.
all right.
Great.
which are we gonna do? Both?
No, no, yeah, you guys aren't gonna take action, but they want me to do something.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Anyway,
Okay, any discussion?
What, I didn't hear the
We're gonna
motion.
repeat the motion.
motion to table this until we get some more information from the planner and ideally some language from Senate Bill 1 as well.
Do we need to have a specific request of the planner, get a little bit more detail, like criteria and?
Sarah, can I follow up with you, or would you rather I follow up with Jeremy?
You can follow up with me.
Yeah.
I just don't want to put it all on you, I'm happy to.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, and we have some discussion. Are we,
Well, I was just asking, do we need to give some specific direction to the planner on what we're looking for in terms of, for instance, what,
I would say, yeah, the plausibility of extending the boundary based on the current definition of blight and how it fits into our urban renewal district as a whole.
And I guess my question is, I have made some notes, and I was gonna work with Tara to make sure that we're accurately correcting this group. Does that work?
yeah.
That was the purpose of Tara included.
okay, great. So, any more discussion? All in favor of Jeremy's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we will table this until we hear on Senate Bill 1. Okay,
So Tara, one last thing, I noticed that James is on the call.
Yep.
We had, at our last meeting,
Yep.
maybe right at the end, we had posed a question to him.
yep,
About, his question was, the original boundary of the URD didn't include the south side of
Yeah.
Highway 78,
uh-huh.
and was there a reason? Since James was the original author, we posed that question to James when he's on.
Yeah.
And if you would like to speak to that, James, we'd appreciate it.
Can we just, have him as part of written correspondence?
Yeah, for
Can
sure.
we okay, so let's move through our agenda.
Yeah.
So treasurer's report, I know this one is gonna be really short.
Yeah, we don't have any new information, numbers as of the last minutes are still standing.
Perfect,
Okay,
that's great.
next agenda item, written correspondence, petitions, and communications from the audience. So yeah, James, if you feel comfortable answering, or talking about what Marcy was talking about. Maybe he's fallen asleep after all of our wandering
You're still
conversations.
muted and no video.
James, can you hear us?
Having dinner.
Yes, I hear you, and I can do that.
Hey, James, nice to hear your voice.
No pressure, but you're up.
Hope you're doing well.
Thanks.
Marcy, do you want to repeat your question?
Oh, sure. Hi, James.
Hello.
Let me find that question again. I just had it up.
Can you speak to why, when the URD was drawn up,
Yeah.
it didn't include the south parcel, which is part of the airport area up there, but it is now east of Airport Road after the road moved? Was that considered? Was there thought? What was the logic for the yay or the nay?
Well,
That-
there was a couple of reasons for the nay. One reason being it's not a huge district, but it was fairly big, and then there was still some blight to the south end of town where I thought there might be a future urban renewal district. So there was concern I had about just having too much land as urban renewal district, in part in case there ever wanted to be one to the south. The other reason being the highway and the roundabout just kind of serve as natural barriers. And so when you're creating your urban renewal district, you have to have some sort of logic on why this is the boundary. And when you get to Highway 78 and the roundabout on the other side of it, there just really wasn't blight. So that was the reason, two main reasons. Another reason being, I figured there'd be opposition to the urban renewal district, and the larger it would be, the more opposition there would be. So I just didn't want to make it overly big for that purpose as well. So I think expanding it into the airport, you need to like really figure out how are there blight, unsanitary conditions, et cetera, in order to expand it. And you might be able to find that, but that's what you need to do.
That's awesome. Thank you,
Perfect.
James.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, any other petitions or communications from the audience? Okay, I got an email that I just need to read. I did not forward it to everybody, so I'm just gonna read it so that it's officially read and everybody's heard. So, this is from Kristen Cogswell, and the email came today. And it just says, it looks like Jeremy got it, Marcy got it. Please
I
share
did
with us.
forward it
I got
out.
it.
Oh,
I
you
did forward it out to
Yep.
everybody.
Oh, so it's already
Yeah,
forwarded.
so I don't
Okay.
know that you necessarily need to read it, but.
Okay, well then
We've
I'm
all
not,
seen it, I
yeah.
guess, yeah.
okay, I'm not gonna read it then. So,
Okay.
just so you all have that, that's great to know that. Perfect, okay. Any other business?
I have a question. Would you like that? I also got a copy of that.
Mhm.
Would you like that included in the council packet next?
Sure. We don't get packets.
No, the council
Oh.
packet is communication from general population. I don't know yea or nay, but
To the count, yeah.
I don't see
I would
why.
assume she would address it to council if she
Yeah,
had to.
right, it was to
So,
us, so,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, any other business? Okay, adjourn then, we'll adjourn. Our next meeting is February 10th, and thank you all so much, and thank you,
All right.
Mitch and Perry, for joining us. We're glad to have you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
nice to meet
Thanks
you
for
both.
our audience.
Sorry I have to rush.
Jeremy.
Thanks,
Treated-
Angela, James, Sue, Myrna.
Run to the bathroom.
I'm going out to the ski, I was just there.
Was anybody there?
Well, I wasn't at the moonlight ski, I was at ski practice, so there were people arriving.
well, that's right. It did disappear.
Yeah, you started at six.
What is the penguin?
The moonlight ski started
Yeah.
at 6, cool. That's my kind of moonlight ski.
It is.
I mean,
The
past,
snow, with the new snow, yeah, it's perfect.
Oh, there.
past 9 o'clock, no thank you.
No, I'm in bed by then.
Again, guys, sorry for the, I've added it to my calendar. Sorry for the meeting not setting up tonight. Staff
That's
normally
quite-
has that all set up, and
You're forgiven.
We're just glad you,
I just don't like dropping the ball.
well,
And then they came out, there's what is that sound? Is that, oh, it is the alarm. This alarm, not the fire alarm. Marcy, can I take a few seconds? please?
Yeah, for sure.
When did Kristen become mayor?
I have,
2022
I have
or
a 7:30 meeting,
2022?
so we're.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Oh, yeah,
No.
is that a planning board meeting, or a school board meeting?
No,
Oh.
it's a ski team meeting, yeah. School board's on Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Find my little
Awesome,
note
thank you.
that, Dave. See you, sir, thank you.
I got my nice boots on.
Yeah, exactly, you got your ice boots on. Yeah.
Thank you, Tara.
I had
Yeah,
mine in
thank
the
you.
car and I chose not to wear them, I should have.
Well, this